Happy official summer reading! First story time of summer reading, and we are packing it with the Imagine Your Story theme, aren't we, Miss Janice?
We are. Our first stories are all fairy tales, or like fairy tales.
Interesting. So for any of you who might not know us, any newcomers, I'm Miss Heather.
And I'm Miss Janice.
And we are ready to start story time.
Welcome. The way we start our story time each day is with a special song, which is up here on the board. It is our hello song.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Hello, neighbor. How are you today? It's going to be a beautiful day. So clap your hands and stomp your feet. Jump up and down and have a seat. Excellent.
Good job.
Shall we do it just the one time?
No, we always gotta do it twice.
I figured as much.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Hello, neighbor. How are you today? It's going to be a beautiful day. So clap your hands and stomp your feet. Jump up and down and have a seat. Awesome.
I think we should start the stories now.
I think that's a great idea.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Our first story today is based on a fairy tale that many of you probably already know, and that is the fairy tale called Cinderella. But our story today is called Cinderelephant. And there she is with her pretty shoes. And this is by Emma Dodd. And here's the family portraits on the wall for our end papers. So Emma Dodd presents Cinderelephant. Once upon a time, there was a lonely girl called Cinderelephant. Cinderelephant lived with her two cousins, who were known as the Warty sisters. They were horrible, mean and smelly, and they had no table manners. They made Cinderelephant do all the cooking and cleaning, and they never, ever said thank you. Cinderelephant was sad and tired and fed up with being ignored. One day, an invitation arrived from the palace. Prince Trunky had decided it was time he found a girlfriend, so King Saggy and Queen Wrinkly had invited all the girls in the neighborhood to a ball. The Warty sisters were very excited and started to plan what they would wear. If they are inviting all the girls, said Cinderelephant, perhaps that includes me? Of course you won't be going, Cinder-irrelevant, laughed the Warty sisters. Whoever would want to dance with you? The day of the party arrived, and the Warty sisters dressed up in their most fashionable clothes. There they are. Bye-bye, Cinderelephant, they called as they left the house. Don't wait up, we're bound to be home very late. Poor Cinderelephant sat all alone in this silent house. A big tear rolled down her trunk and plopped onto the floor. Hey, squeaked a small voice. Watch where you drop those tears. I'm getting soaked. Cinderelephant saw a tiny mouse looking up at her crossly. I'm sorry, she sniffed. I'm just feeling sad that I can't go to the party. Excuse me for asking, but who are you? Why, I'm your furry godmouse, of course, he exclaimed. And with a flick of his magical tail, he said, you shall go to the ball. Look at Cinderelephant, all dressed up pretty for the ball. Wow, you look amazing. Go to the party and enjoy yourself, said the furry godmouse. but, and it's a big but, you must be home by midnight. At the palace, Prince Trunky was bored. He didn't want to dance with any of the girls. He was worried they might get squashed. If only he could find someone a bit more his type. But wait, who was this vision of loveliness that had just walked in? "Clear the floor!" bellowed Prince Trunky. "Want to dance?" he asked Cinderelephant as he swept her off her feet and onto the dance floor. Prince Trunky and Cinderelephant danced together for the rest of the evening. "Who is that?" everybody asked enviously. "She looks a bit like... but no, it can't be. She looks so good, and she's such a great mover," said the Warty sisters. Cinderelephant had never been so happy. She didn't notice the time passing until suddenly the clock struck midnight. "Oops!" she exclaimed. "I've got to go home." And she rushed from the palace. As she rushed from the palace, she dropped one of her beautiful shoes. "Wait! What's your name?" Prince Trunky called after her, but Cinderelephant had already gone. At his foot lay one of Cinderelephant's fabulous shoes. There and then Prince Trunky made a decision, and Prince Trunky's decisions carried a lot of weight. Picking up the stiletto, he declared, "I shall find the girl whose foot fits this shoe, and I shall marry her." The next day, Prince Trunky began the search for the girl of his dreams. He went from house to house trying the fabulous shoe on every girl's foot. It fit nobody. "Will I never find her?" sighed the prince. At last, he arrived at the Warty sisters' home. "Give me that shoe," demanded one Warty sister. "It's bound to fit me." But of course her little trotter was far too small for the gorgeous shoe. "Let me have a go," said the other sister, snatching it. "I am Prince Trunky's one true love." But of course it did not fit her either. Sighing quietly to herself, Cinderelephant peeked shyly through a crack in the kitchen door. But oops! She accidentally stepped into a bucket, knocked over the broom, bringing a pile of pots and pans crashing and clattering down. "Who is in there?" asked the prince. "Oh, nobody important," said the Warty sisters hurriedly. Taking no notice, Prince Trunky went to investigate. "Could it be you?" asked the prince, slipping the lovely shoe onto Cinderelephant's foot. It was a perfect fit. "You are the one for me," said the prince in delight. Cinderelephant had never been so enormously excited in her life. Cinderelephant and Prince Trunky were married the very next day, and of course, they were hugely happy ever after. And there they go. The end. Thank you for joining me for the first story of our summer reading program.
Our second story today is called Bloom, and it's written by Doreen Cronin and David Small. It's called A Mud Fairy, an Extraordinary Girl, and a Castle in Peril. Dun, dun, dun. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Once upon a time, in a beautiful glass kingdom, there lived an unusual fairy named Bloom. Her boots were caked with mud. There was dirt between her teeth. Beetles rested in her wings. Bloom's magic could spin sand into glass, turn weeds into blooms, and grow a tickle of rainwater into a racing river. Bloom was a helpful creature, but her footsteps were heavy, and she left a trail of tiny cracks and mud wherever she went. As the years passed and the kingdom became larger and shinier, the people cared less about Bloom's magic and noticed only the mess she left behind. They complained about her heavy feet and her muddy fingerprints. Bloom had finally had enough. She left without saying goodbye and went to live in the heart of the forest. Both the kingdom and Bloom were extraordinarily happy with the choices she had made. Years and years went by, and the glass kingdom had fallen into a state of disrepair. It was held together by duct tape, glue, and peasants. The king was reminded of the powerful creature who once lived in the kingdom. His royal court offered to find her, but the king declined their help. Surely a creature with such power will answer only to a king. Very well, your highness, but tread lightly. Fairies are delicate and easily frightened, advised the royal court. The king entered the forest on his swiftest steed, determined to find the creatures and save the kingdom. Bloom felt the horse's hoofbeats and came to greet the king. "I am looking for a magical creature gone so many years ago," he announced. "I am here," she answered. The king glanced at Bloom with her dirty hair and clunky shoes. "Show me magic that will save my kingdom," ordered the king. Bloom placed a bucket of mud at the king's feet. "How dare you!" bellowed the king. He dismissed Bloom as a trickster and rode off. "Suit yourself," said Bloom, perfectly happy to go back to her own business. When the king returned empty-handed many days later, the queen decided that she was much better suited to find a magical fairy. Maybe your deep voice frightened her off," said the queen reassuringly. "I must go in your place." The next day she entered the forest accompanied by a single guard. Bloom heard their footsteps and, once again curious, stepped out to greet the queen. "I am looking for a magical creature gone so many years ago," announced the queen. "I am here," answered Bloom. "Show me the magic that will save my kingdom," ordered the queen. Bloom placed a bucket of mud at the queen's feet. "How dare you!" bellowed the queen. She dismissed Bloom as a trickster and rode off. "Have it your way," said Bloom. She picked up her bucket and skipped back to where she came from. "What of the magical creature?" asked the king. Upon the queen's return, broken glass crunched under her feet as she crossed the room. Rain fell from the cracks in the ceiling. "Clearly it is too frightened to speak directly to royalty," answered the queen. "We must send someone ordinary." Genevieve was exactly that. The smallest, the quietest in the kingdom. Her only job in the palace was to collect, wash, and dry the queen's exquisite crystal sugar spoon. It was a single object in the kingdom that had not yet cracked. The queen summoned Genevieve to her chambers and explained the dire situation. "You are a last hope," she said kindly. "I will not fail you, my queen," Genevieve said in her tiny voice. She brushed the broken glass out of her hair, packed a small bag, and left for the forest. Genevieve traveled through the dark woods without a carriage or guard. Bloom heard the sound of her feet pressing into the ground and stepped out to greet the girl. "I am looking for a magical creature gone many years ago," said Genevieve. "I am here," said Bloom. "Have you any magic to save the kingdom?" Bloom placed a bucket of mud at the girl's feet. "Perhaps if I explain," said Genevieve. "You see, our kingdom is built out of glass, and it's falling to pieces." Bloom placed a shovel at Genevieve's feet. "I am happy to help you with your chores, of course, but perhaps you can show me the magic first," Genevieve said. Bloom studied the tiny girl for a moment. She was so delicate. She had barely left a footprint behind her. "What is your work in the kingdom?" asked Bloom. "I collect, wash, and dry the queen's crystal sugar spoon," Genevieve told her. "Is that all you can do?" asked Bloom, hoping she did not sound too harsh. "Actually, I'm not really sure," said Genevieve. "It's all I'm allowed to do, lest my hands get too rough or too dirty to properly care for the spoon." Why would the king and queen send a delicate child with such a delicate job deep into the dark forest to do something they could not? Asked Bloom. "Because I'm ordinary," answered Genevieve. A dark shadow passed over Bloom's face. She picked up her bucket. She picked up her shovel. She took the girl by the hand. "I will show you the magic that can save your kingdom," said Bloom. Bloom led the girl into a clearing with a small house, a working fire, and an enormous pit of mud. She plunged both her hands into the pit, hurled a brown glob onto the ground, and quickly made a mud pie. "You try it," said Bloom. "I mustn't," cried Genevieve. "I'll never be able to touch the queen's sugar spoon again." "Do you wish to save your kingdom?" asked Bloom quietly. Genevieve did not want to fail the queen. She closed her eyes, stuck her hands into the bucket, and pulled out a scoop of wet, gloppy earth. Nervously, she shook her hands, and the mud fell on the ground, splattering everywhere. "Not bad," said Bloom with a smile. Genevieve laughed and brushed the splatters off her feet. "Now try again," Bloom encouraged. This time, Genevieve enjoyed the cool, shifting feeling of the mud, so different from the delicate spoon. She flung it on the ground exactly as Bloom had. "Nicely done," Bloom said. Smiling, Genevieve shaped the mud into a small, round pie. "Perfect," announced Bloom. "Now, let's make some magic." Genevieve watched Bloom as she shaped one of the mud pies into a perfect brick. She pulled back her hair with her muddy fingers, rolled up her sleeves, and tried to do the same. She made a lopsided, lumpy oval brick. "You'll get it," said Bloom. After 16 more tries, Genevieve made the perfect brick. "What else can I do?" asked the girl. "You'll see," said Bloom. Shovel after shovel, bucket after bucket, she showed Genevieve how to add straw into the mud. That made the bricks even stronger. When her pile of bricks towered over her head, Genevieve was not tired at all, but eager to do more. Bloom showed her how to make mortar by mixing mud with sand. "What is this for?" Genevieve asked. "You'll see," Bloom told her. And brick by brick, row by row, wall by wall, the fairy and the girl built a sturdy house in the middle of the forest. "I can't believe what we've done," shouted Genevieve. "You must go back to the kingdom and share your magic," said Bloom. "But how can I bring back a house?" asked the girl. "You can't. You can only tell the king and the queen what you can do," said Bloom. "They'll never believe that an ordinary girl could do such an extraordinary thing," Genevieve worried. "What would I tell them?" "Tell them there is no such thing as an ordinary girl," said Bloom. Genevieve returned to the kingdom. Her feet were caked in mud. There was dirt between her teeth. Beetles were resting in her hair. She knocked on the palace door and it shattered to pieces. "I am here!" she shouted. Then an ordinary girl rebuilt a kingdom. I really like that story. I love how Bloom teaches our friend Genevieve all about what she can do. So now that our two stories have been read, we want to let you know that it's a lot easier now for us to make these videos because the Friends of the Library have provided us with tripod equipment for our tablets so that we don't have to balance them on chairs anymore, which is what we were doing before. So big thank you to the Friends of the Library for helping us with that this year.
A huge thank you.
Yes.
Big round of applause. Thank you, friends.
We also want to tell you we have attached another song for you to try, and we have a few fun crafts for you to try out at home.
Yes, we do.
You forgot the goodbye song?
Had a lot on my mind the last few months.
All right, Miss Jana, so currently we need a reminder crash course.
We kind of do.
We start by clapping.
That I know.
We go a little faster because we always go too slow. That's right. Okay. You never run too fast though. Okay.
Now remember.
This is how we say goodbye, say goodbye, say goodbye. This is how we say goodbye at story time. We give our friends a great big wave, great big wave, great big wave. Give our friends a great big wave when we say goodbye. Well, now that you remember,
Thank you for reminding me.
you're so welcome.
Friends are so good like that.
Can you say? Okay.
Try again? Yeah. Maybe a little higher this time.
No.
That was too low.
You can go high.
Okay.
I'll say low.
I'll try.
Okay. This is how we say goodbye, say goodbye, say goodbye. This is how we say goodbye at story time. We give our friends a great big wave, great big wave, great big wave. Give our friends a great big wave when we say goodbye.
I think that was good.
Pretty good. For the first time back. Yeah.
Okay. We'll be back again
Next Friday.
next week. Fabulous. Can't wait to see you all again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.